Ho ho ho, and welcome to the Midnight Quilter, where the stitches are festive and the holiday feeling is in the air. Hey everybody, it's me, Angela Walters, your favorite Midnight Quilter. Yes, the one that stays up late making magic happen. And I'm excited to welcome you to the Season's Greeting video series. Over the next 4 videos, we're going to dive into these custom panels and turn them into some Christmas projects that'll be so cute, it'll put Rudolph's nose to shame. So whether you're wanting to stitch up a gift for somebody special, or let's be honest, yourself, these projects will have you feeling jolly in no time. So let the quilting and the eggnog begin. In this video, we're about to quilt the Season Greetings panel. It's so festive that even Santa would approve. Now in the next video, we'll see how we can leave this panel as a wall hanging or cut it up into some pieces and create those projects. And hey, if you want to quilt along with me on these custom panels that I designed for the video series, I've got all these festive goodies available on my website so that you can be quilting your way to happiness before Christmas Eve. All you have to do is click the link in the description box below or visit quiltingismytherapy.com. But before we get to the quilting, let's have a quick heart-to-heart chat. Normally, in the Midnight Quilter videos, I stick to the piecing because playing with fabric is kind of my love language. And then I have the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along, which is video series all about machine quilting. And in this video series, we're gonna be doing a little bit of both, quilting and piecing. Now, if that makes you nervous, or nervy-worvy, as my daughter likes to say, don't worry, I'll have your back every step of the way, while still having some Midnight Quilter fun. And if you've sworn off machine quilting, you're like, nuh-uh, I'm not doing that, well, I hope you'll still stick around and watch, because watching the machine quilting process is almost as much fun as opening Christmas presents. So now that we've got that out of the way, I'm gonna grab my panel, my backing fabric, and my piecing potion, and we're gonna get to quilting. Now, I'm gonna be machine quilting this panel on my sewing machine because it's a lot easier keeping my quilting juice next to me that way. So that means I'm gonna need to make my quilt sandwich before I can get started. What I'm gonna need first is my backing fabric laid right side down. Then I'm gonna place the batting on top, making sure it's nice and smooth, kind of taking care of any of those wrinkles. And then I'm gonna lay my quilt top right side up on top of it. Then you can use safety pins or spray base to keep those layers together. Now I'm actually using a fusible batting, so I'm gonna take a second and use my iron to help fuse those together. Well, this is gonna take a little bit, so I'm gonna grab some reinforcements. Now let's be honest, this part of the process is not a lot of fun, but it is a necessary step to get to the best part. It's kind of like eating your salad so you can have your dessert. Once my quilt sandwich is done, I'm gonna grab my sewing machine and my extended base and Supreme slider. Then of course, I'm gonna grab my Free Motion quilting foot. This little baby is what makes this whole process possible. It's kind of like a magical snowshoe for your fabric, letting it kind of glide underneath the foot. Then, if your machine has a holiday mode, go ahead and turn it on. I'm just joking, there's no holiday mode. Although, wouldn't that be cool? It could play Christmas carols and make Christmas cookies at the same time. Well, now that I have my supplies and my quilt sandwich, I'm not gonna get very far if I don't grab some thread. Now, I know that not everybody loves picking out thread colors, but I think it is so fun. I mean, if quilting is my therapy, then threads are my meds. Anyways, I went ahead and pulled together a few thread colors for consideration. All right, I'm just kidding. I've actually narrowed it down to just 3 thread colors that I think will look perfect on this panel. Of course, I had to go with a red, a green, and a gold. I mean, those are the classic Christmas colors. I love the red thread because it's gonna look beautiful on that center flower, but it also looks good in that darker teal background. That means you'll still see the beautiful texture in that background area with just a little hint of that red. And for the green, I went with a slightly brighter color. Just look how gorgeous that's gonna look up against the leaves and even on that background area. And then to add a little pop of holiday fun, I went with a gold. We're gonna use this to draw attention to elements on our panel and also to quilt around some of the darker parts of those fabrics. If you don't like the pressure of picking out your thread colors, you can get this adorable little trio of threads on our website. Well, now that we have our panel ready and our threads and our machine set up, let's get to quilting. One question I get asked all the time is how to quilt around applique quilts. Okay, well, maybe I don't get asked all the time, that's just a bit dramatic, but it's definitely in the top 15. I designed the Season's Greetings panel to look as though we had some applique pieces to work our way around. Let's be honest, it's because I'm not the kind of quilter that will spend hours and hours doing needle turn applique. I mean, I want to be that quilter, but I'm just not. All kidding aside, when I'm quilting applique quilts, the first thing I want to do is use my quilting to highlight all that beautiful workmanship. And I'm going to do that by stitching in the ditch. Basically, just stitching right outside those applique pieces to really make it pop. I like to think of it as a holiday hug. So we're gonna hug our way around those shapes, fill in the rest of the area, and when we're done, we'll have a beautiful quilted panel. I'm using this gold thread so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. but I would suggest using the red or the green thread for this part. Now, we're not aiming for perfection, we're just trying to get it somewhat close. And one thing that will help you do that is looking ahead of the needle in the direction you're heading. It is a lot easier to quilt a shape if you can see what that shape is gonna be. And as I work my way around the panel, I'm gonna use traveling to help get me from piece to piece. So from this point, I'm just gonna travel along the edge of that flower and continue my stitching right along the seams. That traveling is just gonna make it a little bit more efficient to go from element to element. And as you're making your way around that flower, just remember that you don't have to quilt around every single piece. Sure, we're pretending that this is an applique quilt, but it's not actually. So just go around the pieces that you want and just skip the rest. If your lines are a little shaky or a little bit wobbly, don't get frustrated. I promise when you step back and look at your whole quilted panel, you're not even gonna notice it. And even if the term stitching in the ditch sounds complicated and tricky, think of it more like tracing. It might actually be a little bit easier for those of you that are newer to free motion quilting, because sometimes it's just nice to have that path to follow. And as you're stitching around those individual designs, if you find yourself stuck, just use traveling to get to the next part, or you could even just echo your way around to get unstuck. Because the truth of the matter is, when we're dealing with shapes like this, it's gonna be impossible not to get stuck. So just figure out how you can move on and keep going. And like I said, you don't have to go around every element, especially if you're a little bit newer to free motion quilting or feeling a little apprehensive about it. Just pick a couple pieces to outline and then fill in the rest of the area with a different design. I mean, we're celebrating the holiday season. I don't want you to be grinchy while we're doing this. As I'm working my way around the quilt, I have to confront a very divisive subject. And it isn't whether or not eggnog is gross. I mean, everybody knows that eggnog is gross. No, what we're facing is whether or not to quilt inside the applique. This is totally subjective, so no matter what choice you make, you will be correct. But when I'm quilting around applique, if it's a smaller piece, I don't usually add any quilting on the inside. That's because I don't want the quilting to take away from that beautiful workmanship. But sometimes for larger pieces or areas that are too big to leave unquilted, I might just add a little bit of detail, a little bit of echoing, something to kind of hold it down. And usually that's something I like to do as I'm working my way along the edges of the applique. Again, nothing too crazy, maybe just a little line inside of a leaf or an echo around a circle, just a little something to help hold it all together. And for those of you quilting along with me on a sewing machine, don't forget that you can change the orientation of your quilt to make it a little bit easier. It really just depends on what makes you comfortable. And this shape right here is the perfect example of when I'd want to add some quilting on the inside. Since it is so much bigger than the rest, leaving it unquilted might make it pop out a little bit more than all the other pieces. After I'm done stitching around a couple of those elements, I like to use echoing to help separate them from the rest of the filler. Now, echoing is just the same as stitching in the seam. We're just doing it a set distance away. And you don't have to echo around every single thing. Just echo where you want and then fill in the rest with something else. This gold thread is really showing up beautifully in that dark background. So if you want to add a little pizzazz, show off a little bit, go ahead and use that color. But if you're a little timid or you're like, yeah, nobody needs to see that, go ahead and use a darker color like the red or the green. Like I said, there's no wrong way to do this. And as you're echoing, you're going to be getting some weird, irregularly shaped areas. Just add more echoes and fill those in while you're there, if you want. And for all you perfectionists out there, I know that you wrap presents perfectly, but try to let go of some of that perfectionism as you're quilting. Instead of having a perfect echo, try to focus on keeping the lines smooth. Even if it isn't exactly the same shape, a smooth line will still look perfect. Since we're already kind of towards the center, let's talk about quilting that big, beautiful flower. Even though we've been echoing outside the applique, we can also echo inside. And that's what I'm gonna do to kind of highlight the shapes of this flower. I could echo the whole thing or just the top. Then I'm gonna travel along the edge to kind of define that area. From here, I can put whatever I want in this. I could go ahead and add some more echo lines. I could put a totally different filler in here. It's just up to you and what you think looks good. Just for fun, I'm gonna throw in a swirly kind of shape. And if the thought of using that gold thread in the red flower scares you more than the idea of Black Friday shopping in person, then you can switch it out to a different color. The red thread would definitely blend in, and the green would look nice as well. I'm gonna add some echoing inside the bigger petals as well. Since it's a larger area, I'm gonna space out my echoing just a little bit, more like a ½ inch, just to help kind of fill it in. And you don't have to quilt the same thing in all the areas. I mean, that would be like giving everybody in your life the same gift. You can switch it up if you want and try different designs in different areas. And depending on how much eggnog you've been drinking or how confident you're feeling, you can keep adding more designs, or you can just say, close enough is good enough, and continue on. And what I love about quilting designs is you can customize them and change them up to fit your preferences. For instance, if you find it difficult to echo inside the petal because it's a bigger shape, instead of trying to keep the line smooth, just quilt a wavy line. It's still gonna give the same kind of effect and be a little bit easier. And what I love about echo lines is anybody can quilt a wavy line. If you don't think you can, just try quilting a straight line and chances are it might come out wavy. Once we have the outer part of the flower quilted, it's time to do the center. And for this, I'm gonna keep it nice and easy by just going around some of the lines that are already there. Of course, you can switch this part up as well. This is kind of like a Christmas cookie that you're putting the frosting on, and you can do that any way you want. You can try echoing, try going along those lines. You could add a feather inside, or even just add some more echoes. And what I love about quilting and Christmas cookies is no matter what they look like, they're still great. Man, I just love quilting feathers. This is kind of like the Christmas present to myself. I just love how you can have fun doing a lot of different things, knowing that when we're done, it's gonna look gorgeous, whether we hang it on a wall or turn it into some quilted projects. Now, after I've quilted along the edges of the applique and I've echoed around it, I'm still gonna have some unquilted area to fill in. And really at this point, you can do whatever you want. One thing I like to do though is to look at the applique itself for inspiration. For instance, if there's a lot of leaves in the applique, I can add some more with the quilting. If there's some circles or flowers or whatever there is, I can use the quilting to kind of replicate that in the background area. The main thing here is I just want everything to be filled in. It can be great looking, it could be wonky looking, it could be all the same design or a bunch of different ones. Ultimately, I just want the whole thing quilted. So please try not to stress out too much about this point. And since we're in the holiday mode, quilting all those beautiful designs, I think I'm gonna pull out a little bit of those holly-shaped leaves and quilt them in the background area. This is a fun way to just add that little bit of festive flair to the background areas of your quilt, and depending on how precise you wanna be, you could mark out those shapes or use a stencil. But I'm just gonna go ahead and freehand it and go for it. So I'm gonna start by quilting a couple arcs that go out to a point, and then do the same on the other side. I'm not worried about keeping both sides perfectly the same. I'm just trying to keep it somewhat symmetrical. So if I have 2 points on one side, I'm gonna try to have 2 on the other. I mean, that is just so cute. And then I'm gonna add a couple little circles to look like the berries. And then just for fun, I'm gonna add some more on the other side. This time though, I'm gonna start with a couple pebbles so I make sure they have room to fit in, and I'm gonna quilt those same holly leaves. I mean, truly, it is just so adorable. Well, this would not be the Midnight Quilter if I didn't finish this all tonight, so I'm gonna fill up on my quilting potion, and get to quilting. And then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm all finished. Now it's time to celebrate because this quilt is finished. I love how stitching along some of the designs in the fabric helps show them off, and how the echoing helps separate it from the background filler. Throwing in a couple different designs in some of that background areas is also a great way to keep the holiday spirit going. And because I'm easily bored but easily amused, I decided to change thread colors and do a little bit of the green thread around the outside. It's just so fun to know that you can add details in some of those applique pieces or just echo around them and call it good. Really, it's kind of like a choose your own holiday adventure. Now I actually have another panel just like this I quilted earlier, so let me show you what that looks like. For this one, I went a little over the top with the quilting, adding some dense pebbles in some areas, having more thread color changes, and pulling in some more of those holiday designs. Because hey, what can I say? I just love quilting things to death. But no matter how you quilt your panels, the most important thing to remember is to have fun. Santa doesn't care if some of your stitches jiggle a little bit or if they're not perfectly where they need to go. Psh, he's got other stuff to worry about. And if you're like, oh, I want to quilt along, but I don't want to do the free motion, try using your walking foot. Use some of the decorative stitches on your sewing machine, or shoot, even hand quilt it. The most important thing is we get this sucker quilted so we can turn it into some quilted projects in the next video. So if you're quilting along with me, go ahead and quilt your panel, because in the next video, we're going to chop it up and make it into some really cool things. Until then, this is the Midnight Quilter signing off and wishing you a very quilty evening. Until next time, happy quilting.